So I think when I first started out, some of the drive was when I was growing up. I had a lot of people tell me that it wasn't a really good career, and the idea of like you're not as successful if you do that type of work. And it kind of lit a fire under me that was like, well, no, it is a good opportunity for people to make money and have a job and have a career and have a lifestyle. So when I started that and it drove me, I ended up progressing fast enough that I was 23 years old by the time I bought my first house, which is, the peers I grew up with, they were just graduating college and looking for a job.
Sure, sure.
And so I was really able to project myself in my life really fast. And I kind of hit that plateau in the everyday monotony of the 9 to 5 job.
Welcome, everybody, to the Eddie Austin BEX podcast. I'm excited about today's episode because I have a new guest on, and this guest has got some exciting stuff coming up. Can't wait for you to hear more. But Conor, please, without further ado, introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, hey, Eddie, thanks for having me on. My name is Conor Schafstall. I live in Norman, Oklahoma. This is a town right outside of the Oklahoma City metro area. And yeah, excited to be on here and have a conversation and see how this goes.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So you're an automotive technician, correct?
Yep. I am a service technician at a Honda dealership in Oklahoma City. I've been doing that. I've been working there since I was in high school, actually. When I was in high school, I started part-time in high school, and then halfway through the day, I'd go to work and work in the afternoons.
Very cool. So did you take like some automotive classes in high school that got you excited about it?
I did. So to give you more background, when I was growing up, my grandfather and my great-grandfather have always been in the automotive industry, or hobbyist or whatever. And so I've
Yeah.
always loved cars growing up.
Yeah.
And so I was excited to go to a trade school and learn how to work on cars. And the program that I went through is awesome. And they got me placed into the dealership before I even graduated. And I loved it. And I've been working there ever since. And now I started as a lot porter, which is a guy that just moves cars on the dealership
Yeah.
lot. Not very entry level. And now I'm the shop foreman. I went from lot porter to express bay, which is like oil change guy, to mainline technician, to being a master certified technician. I can work on anything, everything when it comes to Honda. And then I got promoted to be the shop foreman. So now I handle all the scheduling for the technicians, any kind of diag where other technicians are getting stuck, I go and help. And I do all the training for the apprentices that are coming up in the dealership. I look at all the numbers through the dealership and see where we're at as a group. And so I really love it. It's been a really great career for me.
Man, that is so awesome. I remember when I started in my first big boy job world and coming in as just entry level mechanic and left the company as, assistant manager. And that takes a lot of hard work. It does. So let's go through that journey. Like you had to have a purpose, a drive to get to that point. That company had to see something in you to like, hey, Conor's got what it takes. He shows up early, stays late. There had to be something there. So if you had to break that down, what would it be?
So I think when I first started out, some of the drive was when I was growing up. I had a lot of people tell me that it wasn't a really good career, and the idea of like you're not as successful if you do that type of work. And it kind of lit a fire under me that was like, well, no, it is a good opportunity for people to make money and have a job and have a career and have a lifestyle. So when I started that and it drove me, I ended up progressing fast enough that I was 23 years old by the time I bought my first house, which is, the peers I grew up with, they were just graduating college and looking for a job.
Sure, sure.
And so I was really able to project myself in my life really fast. And I kind of hit that plateau in the everyday monotony of the 9 to 5 job. What ended up kind of changing my gear, my mindset after that is my job was hosting a year long class. It was one class a month on a Wednesday for a leadership class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in it. I'm like, I've got nothing else going for me. Like, if I want to progress my career, I should probably do something else. And so I went and took this class, and I looked around at everybody else that was in the room with me, and it was all the other managers. It was the service managers, the parts managers, the sales managers, the general managers. I was the only technician in there, and which was I thought was crazy. It's cool because you get a different type of level of respect from the people you're sitting next to when you go into something like and
100%.
I've always kind of looked at training, like my job, my pay is all based of my training. Like I have to add value to myself with training before I can get paid that value or put that value out to other people. And so I just looked at it as another training opportunity. And then when I got into that class, it really changed my mindset and what they were teaching in that class also.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
really
that's
awesome.
the thing. A lot of times, throughout my career of managing lots and lots of people, everybody wants to make more money. But the the issue is the only way to become paid a higher value is to become more valuable. And a lot of people do miss that as they think, well, if I just work hard and show up and do these things, then I'll just automatically make more money. Well, yeah, you might get a raise every single year, but even through that raise, like if that person took vocational school, if they took some Ivy Tech, they got a different certification, yeah, I can justify paying them more. But most people, it seems like they miss that. They're like, well, in order to become more valuable, what do I need to do? And it sounds like you ask yourself the question, what do I need to do? And they had this management training. And it just so happened, it sounds like you were the only technician in that, but yet you got respect from your peers simply because they could see that. Like this guy's showing up, he could be out there turning wrenches forever, but he wants to be up here in the management role and he realizes what it takes is to get the education.
Yeah, that's exactly. I've had that conversation with a lot of the younger guys that come through my shop that want to aspire to be more, and they might be changing the oil for 2 years
Yeah.
down, and they come to us and say, I want to make more money. Like, why can't I get a raise for doing my job? I'm like, well, you're doing exactly the same job you were 2 years ago, and you haven't had any more training to do that same job. So I don't know how you expect us to be able to pay you more when you haven't done more. And so I have to have that same self reflection on myself. Okay, well, if I want to become more, what do I have to do more and
Yeah.
be more?
Yeah. And, from that in life, it sounds like you had really good peers. And it also sounds like that you had some strong family morals there because there had to be something there that had you wanting to buy a house at 23 and really accelerate your journey. You want to touch on any of that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to support, I got to say my dad was a really big driver behind that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a lot of, well, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think there's a lot of people I grew up with that had the same support system. Of if I go to my dad and say, "Hey, Dad, I want to work on cars for a living. I don't want to go to college and go to the traditional." He supported me 100% and said, "That's what you want to do. Let's go make that happen." And so, and coming up through my career and life in general, I'm like, what's the next steps to do? I could always go back to him and have those conversations with him. And he was able to really guide me in the direction that I wanted to go and needed to go. So
That's awesome,
it was
man.
a huge help.
Yeah, that's awesome. My dad was a big influence on my life. He was a carpenter. He was a home builder. He also built boats. And, I always kind of thought that dad would push me towards being a carpenter because that's what he did was work with wood. And I was a welder when I first started out. I was welding at 12 years old. And that was what dad kind of like, look, I want you to learn a skilled trade. It doesn't have to be, carpentry. It can be anything. But, learning a skilled trade really helped me get where I am today. And if I hadn't have done it, I don't know where I would have ended up. But it was structure for number one. And then it was understand the mechanics of something. You know, if I had the ability to take something apart, I could certainly put it back together. So, just like when you're starting a podcast also, right?
I am. Yes.
So in that podcast, like there's mechanics to a podcast as too. You got to understand like the posting of things, the editing of things, and all those different things. So there's probably a process that you looked at. You had to look at that and break it down and go, look, where do I want to go? So now we're talking about applying where you want to go in life. You've made it to this management role in your job, but there's something that's calling you to be more. So what is that calling?
Well, so I'm going to give you a little bit long story on this one.
Let's go for it.
So, being in the career field I'm in, and kind of how you hinted on working with your hands and learning how something functions, it gave me unique skills to be a problem solver.
There you go.
Now, that's what I do all day, every day is people bring me problems and I solve them. And so having that unique skill, I've learned that what I actually enjoy about my job is on top of working on cars is being able to work for other people and help solve their problems. And I was trying to figure out, well, what can I do in my life that I can apply these skills and solve problems and grow and scale. And what it brought me to is looking into real estate
Mm-hmm.
and wanting to be able to scale effectively. I found that multifamily real estate was the best way to do that. And so on this past year, I've been on a journey of learning how to acquire properties and use syndication to work with others to purchase apartment complexes and work with investors that I'm trying to solve a problem for them, which is how to make money work for them, how to get tax benefits, how to create passive income. And then I also see that we're buying apartment complexes that tenants have problems. There's apartment complexes out there that aren't being taken care of correctly, aren't being managed properly, and tenants are suffering for it. And so we're put in a unique situation that we can go and solve these problems on multiple different levels for different classes of people. And everybody gets the benefit from it. So it's great. And I decided that the best way to put myself in front of these people is with a podcast. And so now I've been on the journey of learning how to set up and create a platform that I can talk to several people with one message. Setting up a podcast is the best way to do that, and
100%.
making a presence on social media. And so now I'm learning that process, and there's so many mechanics to go behind that. The equipment you need to set up, the space you need to set up to record it, software and the editing, and just being able to post it and get algorithm that people will be able to see it. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes behind it.
There is. And that's so cool that you realize all that, because the most amazing part about what I admire you for is the ability to want and see more, and then understanding that you are a problem solver. I say that I'm in the help business. I help people from, developing raw land to providing a home for somebody. I help people from, not earning enough in the traditional 401k to being able to invest in real estate. We do the exact same thing in that. But for me, it was that light bulb that went off as I'm like, I'm not singly focusing on this. I'm taking a problem that somebody has and I'm figuring out how to help them for it. And therefore, it helps them and they can help us because we need money to be able to purchase these properties and do these things. So, from that, the most amazing thing that I always look up to people for is the ability and the bravery to start a podcast and talk in front of millions of people and, put that out there in front of the public, because a lot of the times this imposter syndrome creeps in and you're like, I need to start a podcast. I want to start a podcast, but I don't know if I can hit the record button. And, you're doing that right here, right now. And that's so cool to do that, because that's what it takes. It takes a little bit of bravery. It takes a little bit of crazy, but you realize that you're a problem solver. And the only way to solve more problems is to let people know what you do and how you can help them.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
so awesome.
Yeah, it's very nerve wracking to start getting in front of the camera and start putting yourself out there.
Of course, it's a
You
natural
know,
response.
I've been in a world where I never post on social media. Nobody really knows what's going on in my life except for my really close friends. And it's been a challenge to be able to put myself out there like that. But I think it's for a bigger purpose and a bigger reason. So, I have to do it.
Yeah, 100%. Because when you have this pain point of, I've got this calling that I've got to help more people, but yet I'm afraid to post on social media, or I'm afraid to make this first podcast episode. When the pain gets big enough, you're like, okay, I just got to do it. Like, I got to make the post. I don't care what people might say. I just got to do it. That's the only way, is you've got to do it. And the thing is it's so unfortunate in this very busy world that, everybody forgets who we are. Like, if we don't really leave a lasting impression with somebody, then they forget us. And the only way to do that is to get back on the next day and again, speak out and do your podcast, do your Facebook reels, do your Facebook posts, do all these things, post everywhere as much as you can, to where people are reminded who you are, what you do, and how you can help them.
Yeah,
That's the coolest part.
I think one of the coolest parts I've learned about this in this journey on my social media platform is the amount of support that I've been getting from other people in my life and the interactions they have on my posts and what they're excited to see from me. And sometimes it's even family members that you don't even think to reach out and talk to them in a while. And I made a post. I have my great grandfather's car that I've been working on, and my grandma reached out to me and said, I really love that you're working on his car and you're fixing it for him. He wasn't able to do that for years before he passed, and he would really appreciate it that you're doing that.
Wow,
Like,
man. See,
wow, that's powerful.
that's it.
You know,
That's it. Because that's the cool part, is a lot of times people live vicariously through you, and they might not have the skills or the ability, but to see you do that, man, you have no idea how uplifting that is to your grandma. Like, luckily she was able to reach out and express that. That's awesome, because most people won't, and but yet they're very proud of what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. I truly believe that's true. And um, it's cool to see that the reactions and the feedback I get from people that I care about, and I do care about what their opinion is, and it's really been more of a positive feedback. So it's really nice.
So the name of the podcast is,
Mindset in motion.
okay.
Yeah, I landed on that is because I'm an expert in automotive, and I'd like to talk about stuff when it comes to the automotive industry. But moving into real estate, I want to talk about real estate too, and the mindset behind that and what it can do for you. And so I was stuck between, okay, should have a podcast that talks about what I'm an expert in for the past 15 years, or should I talk about my new journey? And so I ended up deciding that I want to sit on a podcast that focuses on mindset, because now I can even talk to people in other industries that aren't anything to relate to what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
and have them come on and talk about their journey. And I think it's really cool because I've noticed that the biggest change is with mindset. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. It's all about how you look at the situation, look at your life, and look how you can help others. And so I really want to talk about that and the impact and effect it has on everybody in different industries.
Well, I think that's going to be an amazing podcast, because the mindset is where it all starts. I've seen people that they had an amazing dream, but they just couldn't get their mindset to match the amazing dream. And they just didn't, number one, they didn't believe in themselves. They surrounded themselves around the wrong people, and they just continually had trouble feeding the right mindset. That's the biggest thing, is it's the driver behind it, right? Is you got to like switch the mindset. Like, I'm not going to be a mechanic my whole life. I want to be something else. And then there's a lot of stuff that comes at you and says, Connor, what makes you think you can ever get behind a microphone and run a podcast and be a producer? And that's the things that creep in, are just like, what makes you think you can restore a car? You can
Yep.
certainly pull a car in that's newer, and you've got all the supporting documents. You've got books that tells you how long it actually takes you to replace an alternator. But when you're working on a 1967 or a 73, it's a total different story, right? There's books and manuals, but everything you do, you're going to face challenges. You just have to go with this and go, you know what? This might not be a Honda, but I'm going to apply what I already know to this and I'm going to make it work. But it starts with that positive mindset. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. I actually think the only way that you can fail is to quit.
Yeah.
Everything else is just a learning opportunity. So, I might fail the first 3 times I attempt to do something, but that fourth time when I succeed, well,
Yeah.
now have success.
Yes.
I didn't fail anymore. So,
100%.
yeah, and that all comes back to mindset. Is you just got to keep going, and you got to keep trying. You got to keep pushing yourself to be better.
I think about Thomas Edison a lot, and, he had thousands of failed attempts, but he didn't call them failures. He said, I know 1,000 different things that won't work if you apply it this way. Just like over the weekend, we were putting up our pool and we wanted to put the cover over the top of it before we got water put in it to just keep the dust and everything out. And it was giving us a really hard time. We only had 3 people. We'd put this edge on here and the other edge would flip off. And it's just like everybody's like, okay, this isn't working. And I'm like, just give me one more try. Let's get some bungee cords and hold it on this side, and then maybe we can go around the other side. Let's give it another try. And it instantly came to me that we would never have light if we didn't have somebody that never quit. And I
Yeah,
think about that consistently is when I'm trying to do something that's just not working and you want to quit because you're like, will this ever work? It instantly goes off in my brain like that light bulb would not be on if the gentleman that made that decided this is never going to work. And it's going to look different, but his mindset is I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. And I'm not going to look at my failures as failures. I'm going to look at them as I tried it this way and it didn't work, but here was the reasons why it didn't work. So we know we can't use those again. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people forget about it is they're like, well, that just won't work. But try. Like you said, you tried 3 or 4 or 5 times. That's what you have to do is you just have to keep
yeah,
trying.
yeah. And another thing I'd like to hit on that is that sometimes you don't have to try by yourself. There's a lot of other people out there that might have the right answer for you. And everything that you do, you can do with other people and you can help each other. You can't be afraid to ask for help.
No,
Not everybody knows everything. And so being able to get in contact and connect with the right people that might have answers that you don't, that's always an option too. I'd rather
absolutely.
do that before I quit.
100%. Sometimes I think the hardest thing, especially for men to do, is to raise their hand and say, "Hey, I don't know how to do this. Has anybody ever done this before?" I think that's really difficult. I think that's really pride and ego that really keeps us from true growth is because we're like, "I don't know how to do this and I'm afraid to admit to it." Instead of saying, "Hey, Connor, I've never done this before. Have you? Or do you know anybody that has?" And most of the time, people that are successful, especially people that are pretty successful, they remember what it was like when they started out. So they're happy. Like it's fulfilling for guys like us to say, "Hey, I'll help you." Like I remember what it was like to start your first podcast. It kind of was nerve wracking. It took a bunch of different iterations of it. So yeah, here, look, I'm going to help you with this. You need to do this. You need to do that. And sometimes they'll just jump on a phone call with you. So I would say, audience, never be afraid to raise your hand and just say, "Hey, I've never done this before," or "I'm about to do this. Is there any secrets? Is there any things I should know about?" I know, like, I'm going to, well, we'll serve our automotive guys here. I remember the first time I changed the oil cooler out on a 97 Power Stroke. I had drained the coolant. I did all these things, but what I didn't think about was the coolant that was stuck inside the block above that oil cooler. And I remember doing it on video and I'm thinking, all right, well, I drained the coolant, everything else, we're all good to go. I just need to pop these 4 bolts loose and I take this thing off. And yeah, I'd never done it before. Well, I got a bath, just like sometimes when you go to pull a head off of something, like there's little coolant ports. There's a little plug underneath the head that you might have to drain the jacket. So like that one, right below where my 4 bolts were that I was taking off, there was a little plug right there. And all I needed to do was go, hey, you might want to take that plug out because that's the resisting coolant that's just sitting right behind there. And you're about to be the method that moves that all in your face. And that's
Yep.
exactly what I did. Just like that is, hey, raising your hand. Hey, I'm about to change this thing out. I'm about to do this. Is there anything I should look out for? Is there anything I should do? Just ask. That's the biggest thing is allow to be helped. A lot of people just seem like they refuse to get help because they're like, well, if I never ask, I'm going to be viewed as that much more of an expert.
Yep. Yep. It's scary to think about. Sometimes just simply asking can make a 20-minute job, if you don't ask, turn into a 45-minute to an hour job just for something simple. And being an expert or not, you're going to look a lot worse if you're taking that extra 45 minutes to do something than you would if you just asked for a little bit of help and then you got it done in 20 minutes.
100%. I think that's the thing is if we really measured this, you became an expert technician because somebody taught you. There was manuals, there was books, there was a coach, there was a teacher, there was an old gentleman that had worked there 25 years, and he had every special made tool in his toolbox, that wasn't in the manual, that the manual didn't work. Like, it's okay to have the textbooks, but you also have to ask the old man in the corner that's been there 25, 30 years. And you're like, hey, I'm about to do this job. You're going to need this wrench.
Yep.
Like
You
this
know what?
wrench right here.
Those old guys, I swear, they've probably forgot more than I'll ever learn.
Yep,
They have the knowledge stored there.
they do.
So
They really do.
you always got to talk to those guys.
Yeah. So mindset in motion. I think that's just an amazing podcast. Bulk of the content, 100% mindset, I'm sure. But I'm sure you're going to parlay this into, look, these are the things that I had to think about that's now made me think about being a real estate investor. And it's making me think about, look, I'm a problem solver, but my thing is I am bigger than just solving problems in the automotive industry. I can apply my skills now to solve problems in every industry, especially when it comes to multifamily real estate. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's not even, can I solve a problem in automotive or can I solve a problem in real estate? It's, you have a problem, and if I can't solve it, I'll try to connect you with somebody that can. And that's what it's all about.
That's it. That's it, man. That's so it. Is there anything else that you would tell the audience? And audience, stick around because we got the lightning round coming up. But is there anything else you can think of that really was that aha moment for you?
Here about a couple months ago, actually, pivoting over to real estate, I had a moment with my dad. He he wasn't quite understanding what I was trying to accomplish with real estate, and he was stuck on the money aspect of, well, I could never ask somebody for that much money, and I had to break it down to him in a way that he could understand, which was, okay, if I tell you that I'm gonna go buy a Jeep for $4,000, but I can sell it in a couple months for $10,000. We just got to put $1,000 into it. Do you want on that deal? Will you go half a half with me,
Yeah.
and we can make some money off it?
Yeah.
It's not the fact I'm asking you for $2,000 so I can do this deal on this Jeep. It's the fact of, hey, I have this awesome opportunity that can benefit us both, and then we can get this Jeep back on the road and driving and looking nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, ah, okay, that makes sense. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to pivot to now is to provide those type of opportunities. And I think when I first started this real estate journey, that's how I felt. I felt like my dad. It was like, wow, like I see the potential, but I'm so scared to go talk to these people to say, hey, minimum investment on this property is $50,000 if you want in. And I felt scared to go ask people for that money. And it was an aha moment for me when I had to explain the difference to my dad. I was like, oh wow, I do get it. My mind has changed. I'm doing better than what I did a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that all came down to mindset. And that was my aha moment pretty recently of like, wow, I'm better than I was. So that was pretty cool.
And let's break that down even further because I love the analogy. And, the dad, the old man, he's got a little bit of money set aside, but that doesn't mean that he has either the skills, the know-how, or the want to put his money to work. But yet Conor here he's a deal finder. Like he found this Jeep and you found it in this way that you're smart enough to say, I know that we can put $1,000 in this thing and it'd be worth that much more. So you have this knowledge and you certainly could probably find the money and do it yourself, all yourself. But at the same time, you're like, hey, I could get dad involved here, or I could get X number investor involved here and say, hey, look, I've got this opportunity. I've got the skills and the know-how, and I could probably even have my buddy that has a little mechanic shop. He's a little slow right now. I could buy the parts and take it to him. He could even fix it. But
Yeah.
I'm resourceful. I'm knowledgeable. Somebody brought me this Jeep and I know that I can fix it. And I also know what it's worth. So that's the two biggest things is you've seen the opportunity and you know what it's worth when you fix it. You also know how much it's going to take to fix it.
Yeah.
So then it's like, how do I put this thing together? Well, I know he could use a return on his money because he's not doing much with anything he's got, but he would certainly like a couple $1,000 return. And then I could certainly maybe not have the time to actually physically fix this thing. I could hire my buddy that turns wrenches, is getting started. He's a great mechanic. I could pay him $500 to do the work for him. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
From that
I'm going to
scenario.
make money for finding the deal.
Yeah.
And for managing the project. My dad's going to make money for nothing. He's going to sit back and do nothing. He's going to make money off it. And then my mechanic buddy, he's going to make money off doing the work for him.
Right. Everybody eats. And the thing
Yeah.
is no one piece is no less important than the other. Your skill set, your ability to find the deal, 100%, none of this would have happened without you. None of it wouldn't have happened without the seller of the Jeep. None of it wouldn't have happened without dad's money or anybody X number of person's number of money. And then number four is that guy that can physically do the work. Like it's the contractor on the apartment building to do the value add strategy. Like every single role is super important. And you have the open mindset and the abundant mindset to say, all of us can eat. All of us can have work. And it's all going to be a happy ending because I guarantee you, the guy driving the problem-free Jeep, he's going to be happy about it when he buys it from you. Or the person that buys the apartment or rents the apartment from you. Everybody's going to be happy. And the contractor was a little slow starting out, he's happy. The guy that invested, he's happy. And you feel completely gratified because you put this thing all together. Like it's pretty cool. I love that you've figured that out. I love that analogy of that breakdown and then us taking the ability to go even further. That's how you help people. And it doesn't need to be apartment buildings. I know people that flip cars all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I have one right now that I'm doing a flip on.
Yeah.
It's
What are you
gonna, I
flipping
bought
right
it.
now?
Get this, I bought it for $425. I'm going to have another $500 or $600 into it, and I've already got it sold for $3,000 after I get the rest of the work done.
Very cool.
And they're still getting it at a cheaper price than what they can find it on the market somewhere else.
Yep. Yep.
So literally everybody's winning, and everybody's going to be happy at the end of the day.
It's just like the other day, it's like seeing opportunity. Person I know, he's got this vehicle sitting outside and he says, "Hey man, I'm thinking about scrapping that thing out." I was like, "Hey man, that thing looks like it's rust free. It looks like the paint's a little rough, but it looks like it's a nice vehicle. How many miles is on that?" "Oh, I don't know, 130,000. And I was like, "What year is that thing?" It's 96. Well, it's a Chevy Tahoe, 4-wheel
Wow.
drive, LT. Like, they don't make these things anymore.
No.
With 4-wheel drive with 123,000 miles on it. I was like, "Dude, what do you want for it?" He goes, "I'm going to haul it off the scrap." And I was like, "Well, I'll call the scrap yard and I'll figure out, how much. But what's wrong with it? It needs intake gaskets. $400 set intake or parts, labor, and everything. $400 for intake gaskets. This thing's great." I'm just playing around. I just look it up on NADA and what others are selling for. If you took the time to put the money in it, that thing's worth 20 grand.
All day long.
I mean, come
Yep.
on. Like, that's the thing, is like, it doesn't matter if it's apartment buildings. It doesn't matter if it's, flipping anything. Like, just think. Like, I love the book Think and Grow Rich, because that's the whole premise. Like, if you really, really had an incredible mind, you wouldn't even know to get past the cover and you can make money. Like, just the cover of the book, Think and Grow Rich. Just like you found that flip, you think this way and you're like, I can do this. And you can make money, because at the end of the day, we're all chasing one thing. I'm going to say it to you, and then you tell me if that's what you're chasing. Guarantee you're chasing enough money to go wherever you want, whenever you want, and take whoever you want with us as long as you want.
Absolutely.
That's what we're chasing. So why are we
Absolutely.
taking the slowest path? That's what I always ask people.
Yeah. I mean, that's chasing the money because it's what you're able to buy with it, which is your freedom and your time back.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's because my dad just retired and I want to go work on cars with him. My mom is trying to retire and I want to make sure that she doesn't have to worry about making a house payment. My sister is a principal at a school in the city, and school systems are rough. And
Mm-hmm.
she's not the happiest at her job. I want to be able to provide the freedoms for her too, and show her what we can do as a family.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Money is the lubricant that helps us slide through life.
I like that. That's good.
All right, let's jump in the lightning round here. So, series of questions, just answer them top of mind. What is the number one book that you've read that changed your life?
Atomic Habits.
Love that book. How are you using AI in your daily life?
Ooh, ChatGPT. I got a list of questions for my podcast coming up. I make Facebook posts and I run the wording through it first to see if it can improve it. Picture cover albums for my podcast. Anything, everything. It just can take what you have already and improve it. Yeah, love it.
So true, man. Favorite quote?
I don't know if I have one off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't have a favorite quote.
Favorite
Sorry.
car?
Oh, my first car. Still have it. Love it. Can't get rid of it. It's a 1975 Firebird.
Sweet.
I
Sweet.
got a lot of other cars that I could list off, but
Oh,
I'll
yeah,
say
me too.
that's
Me
my
too.
baby.
Very cool, man. What is the one thing, biggest takeaway so far in 2025?
The ability to just keep going. I've put myself through a lot, and I've put out a lot of money, and I haven't got a lot of return. But it's not about the money; it's about the ability to help others. So I'll struggle until I'm not struggling anymore, and that's, I figured out I can take on a lot more than I thought I could. That's my biggest
We
takeaway.
always can. And it's going to come back to you in ways you can't imagine. But we have to sometimes spend unapologetically, and we have to sometimes put out way more than we're comfortable with to get a return on that. Because it seems like when we're afraid to step out, like we don't get rewarded until we really step out. Like when we really put ourselves out there, we really put out the money that you need the return on. And when you go, I don't care how long this takes, it's going to work. It always does. Like it's like that bravery. It's that showing up, and it works. Like if you just trust and have faith, it comes back to you tenfold. Tenfold. Where can people find you? On social media?
They can find me on social media on Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, Conor Schafstall, CONORSCHAFSTALL.
Awesome.
Probably not a whole lot of people with that name out there, so you should be able to find me pretty easily.
Yep. When is the first episode coming out of the podcast?
I am setting out some questions to send to a couple people to get on a call with. I would say here in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be ready to go and put them out.
And remind the audience one more time of the name.
Mindset and Motion.
Love it. Love it, man. Well, I wish you well. I thank you so much for sharing time with me today. It's been absolutely amazing. And audience here, if you can do us one huge favor, I'm going to ask every single person. We're going to hold this episode to the day that Conor launches his podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast, the link to his podcast will be in this video. And I want you to share it with every single person that listens to this to drive the audience to Conor. I would love to see Conor get monetized on YouTube as fast as humanly possible. I would love to see Conor have millions of views right out of the gate and be wildly successful. So please, I want you to be extraordinary, and I want you to share this episode. I want you to smash the like button. I want you to subscribe, and then I want you to share this thing with as many people as you can and help Conor.
Well, that's awesome, Eddie. I really appreciate that. Audience, hopefully I'll be seeing you again pretty soon.
That's right. We'll see you on the next one, buddy.
Thanks. Bye, Eddie.